All right, so for our last segment, we have leaders who are here to discuss an OT and IT convergence measuring the security risk. Last segment, so can we have a big round of applause just for the fact that this is the last segment of the session? Leaders, by now, do I even need to mention? The drill is, we take in the names, you come in, we ask you a very simple question, and you give a very simple one-line answer. Fantastic. Okay, so our very first leader for the session is Mr. Mandar Kulkarni, the CISO, Grasim Industries. A big round of applause for Mr. Kulkarni. Mr. Kulkarni, the topic that you'll be discussing on is OT and IT convergence measuring the security risk. And by now you must have understood that what we do is we pick up keywords from your topic and we ask a question. But ladies and gentlemen, I have to confess, I tried my best to come up with something in this, but I failed and I failed terribly, okay? So a question to you is, so that gave us an idea. A question to you is, what do you do when you try really hard and you fail? Wow. Mr. Kulkarni, what do you do when you try really hard and you fail? That is the question. We want a one-line answer. Very normal, simple.
Well, we
Google.
yeah, I just take a small take a small pause, rethink, and start again.
Wow. Wow. Fantastic. Beautiful answer. Beautiful answer. There was also Google it. Does Google also happen for real world problems? My partner is not listening to me. And there was Chai Sutta. Yeah. हो सकता है. World's fantastic answer, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Our next leader is Mr. Rajshekhar Pullabhatla from the Director Information Sharing and Analysis Center, that is ISAC, of course, one of our premium partners for the session. Rajshekhar sir, what would your answer be? Sawal ye hai, what happens? I mean, all of you are amazing leaders. I don't know whether you try and you fail, you always win, but slightest of times when life throws you that curveball, what happens?
Well, I think what Mandar mentioned is the same thing. People who have a desire to do something, they just don't bother with failures. They just continue doing what they want, so it doesn't matter.
My God, what is happening? Beautiful answer. I think by now all the leaders come prepared with every permutation, combination of the questions that we could be asking, because this, sir, this is not spontaneous. This takes time to think. It's a beautiful answer. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Our next leader is Mr. Bijender Mishra, the Global CISO of Alkem Laboratories. We'd be inviting Mr. Mishra again. Mishra, sir, 3 seconds of walking time. A big round of applause for Mr. Mishra. Sir, what would your answer be?
So see, failure is a mindset, you know. So you never think that you got failed. You know, keep trying, and one day you will get succeed.
What? Is this Exito session or have we entered some? वो होता है ना? क्या बोलते हैं? Brahma Kumari session or some life change, huh? This is beautiful, brilliant. Our next leader is Mr. Shivaswaroopa, NS, the Consulting and Delivery Lead Security Services, IBM India, South Asia. Of course, one of our esteemed partners for the session. Sir, what would your answer be?
I usually go watch a movie and then restart after a couple of days.
Sir, how many movies have you watched in total? Then we can understand.
I don't keep count.
Wow. Beautiful, sir. Fantastic answer. And ladies and gentlemen, our moderator for the session, Mr. Yogesh Dadke, APAC IT leader of Adient. Dadke, sir. But for you, we have a different question. Your question is, sir, how have you come from Pune to Mumbai? What was your mode of transport? Ladies and gentlemen, you will be mind blown when you listen to this. Sir, what was your mode of transport?
I flew my own flight. So I have a pilot license. I flew my own flight, came for some important meetings. So this happened to have a conversation today.
Sir, you can't casually just mention, I fly my own flight, I have my own plane. I'm like, what? I don't
It's a small charter,
I don't own a cycle, ladies and gentlemen. This is just, sir, really?
Thank you.
Wow. Crazy, crazy. Ladies and gentlemen, power-packed panelists is what we have. Waiting for you. Gentlemen, stage is all yours. Thank you so much.
Have a seat. So very important, very vital topic, we just have 30 minutes or 5 of us. Even if we divide it by 5 minutes, we are going to exceed our time frame. But let's make it a little more interesting, There are always 2 sets of thought processes in the organization. One is your operational technology, one is your information technology. One with grease on a hand, one with white gloves in a hand. So to make sure how do we create that balance between these two. And from IT perspective, we have IBM here must be having some various solutions in it. We have Rajshekhar from ISAC. He must be having consultative approach to that. We have Mandar from Grassing. He must be doing something great in his organization for OT environment, making sure the OT is equally secured as IT. And we have Mishra Sahab, making sure his industry is up to the mark on his machinery point of view, not just IT point of view. IT point, I think we have heard it enough. So let's talk about it. I can start with Siva, IBM story, a little bit. You can start on what makes you, or how do you help organization build visibility to their OT environment?
Yeah, see, more than the IBM story, these days we are seeing a lot of conversations, right, in the industry, especially when it comes to OT security. And when we speak OT security, there are essentially 3 elements that we look at, right? Meaning, what do you monitor? The first layer is your traditional IT, right? Which is now being monitored, managed for a number of decades. And there are enough best practices, and that is fairly mature, though we still try to deal with different kinds of cyber attacks. But overall, from a security point of view, it is in a fairly mature stage. The second layer is what is the IT in OT, right? So the IT components that are essentially in OT, for which you need to have visibility, right? So that is the second layer, which now many of the enterprises are getting into. The traditional security monitoring technology itself can help you gain that visibility, provided you have some amount of link, right? And that is where you get your one-way communication from the IT part of the OT into your IT environment. The third layer is the actual OT equipments, and that is where most of the challenge comes in. Primarily because of the diversity of the ecosystem, right? There are a number of technology components. Many of them are still legacy in the sense that they have their own protocols and communication mechanisms, which cannot be read by the traditional IT elements. And then the inability to do any change, right? Because implementing a change in IT is still easy, whereas implementing a change in OT is very challenging because there are many aspects associated to it. So these are some of the complexities that we see when we talk of providing visibility to customers from a OT security point of view. So when we say visibility, primarily 2 things, right? One is vulnerabilities, and secondly, the overall posture in terms of what is happening and why is it happening, right? So those are the 2 elements, but the bigger question now that many customers are asking is, after we get visibility, what, right?
Correct.
Now
so I'll pause you over there.
Sure.
And I'll go to Mishra Sahab, that you have received some information from XYZ tool. What do you do on your SOC?
So first, when we talk about cybersecurity, I mean, let me make it very clear that technology has very limited role to play. It's all human psychology. And we say that technology is just 2%, 98% it's a human psychology. When you talk about integration of your OT environment with SOC, again it's a more or less very challenging task, yeah? Because you have legacy systems and those systems have its own limitations. When you talk about SOC integration, I mean, you are on very advanced, platform where you have CIM tool, you have multiple different tools and technologies to get integrated with your OT environment. So integration is a bit challenging task, but again, if you are well aware, you have clear visibility, as gentleman said rightly, that what landscape you have, what are the controls you have, and what are the risks you are carrying. So these three, factors are very important to review, to have visibility on your landscape, to have, clear understanding of your controls, and then you make a strategy to integrate with your SOC. But integrating SOC is challenging, but it's really helpful. And that's a need of the hour, I would say. I mean, if once you integrate your OT landscape with the SOC, you have better clarity. You get real-time alerts that really helps you. Again, I mean, it's awareness. Your plant head, your machine operators, your other resources who are managing your OT landscape, how good they are aware and how they take it. That is another thing. So awareness again plays very important role here. To make them aware that you are carrying such risk and you should follow these best practices, that really plays very important role in OT security.
Okay. So I'll come to Mandar. I'm not trying to skip Raj Sahab here, but I'm just taking it from the industry to industry, and then we'll come to you from the education institute perspective. So, it's very easy to update patch management for your IT environment because that's visible directly to you.
Yeah.
How do you, I'm not trying to tell your story of the organization, but in general, whatever is your lesson learning out of it, you can share with all of us.
Sure. So I think just before coming to the specific point of patch management, we need to be aware why the whole IT-OT convergence has happened in our particular industry, your particular organization. So in the case where this is primarily coming from the initiatives related to Industry 4.0, initiatives related to improving the operational efficiency of our manufacturing setup. So with that context, I think we need to prioritize in terms of, patching. We have done a long, quite a few experience when it comes to IT side. But OT side, the patching and all is so OEM driven, right? It has to be qualified patches from those OEMs whose DCS system or other systems we are using. And therefore, I think it becomes, in a way, governance plays a critical role here when it comes to patch management, because we won't be the actual person executing those or running those patching for those systems, but we need to ensure that that's taken care of by the OEM. Primarily, most of these OEMs these days provide it as a service. If you have a AMC through those OEMs, then they have in their contract with us itself, we can include, the regular periodic patching of those systems. Not just patching, even the antivirus that they're running on some of the endpoints on the OT side, regular updates of those, hardening of those, application whitelisting, patching, all of that jointly with OEM we can do. Because otherwise, if we try to push our own IT side solutions there, it kind of backfires, and therefore it becomes important to partner with them. And
mentioned in the contract management scenarios in our earlier session. That's where we can connect this entire thought process to our contract management mechanisms also. Yeah. So Raj Sahab, from what do you tell it to the organizations for their OT security establishments, from a framework perspective, what is your guideline principles to them?
Okay, so I'll answer this in multiple parts. First, I'll speak about the problems that we have faced with respect to OT. Now, just a few months back, our foundation conducted the Sena Ranakshetram hackathon for the Indian Army. It was the first cybersecurity hackathon for the Indian Army which we conducted. And there was a slot for SDR and hacking with HackRF and Lime SDR. Can you believe how many people we could get for this? Now, there were 15,000 hackers across India who approached for this hackathon to our foundation. You'll not believe it, not even 300 were there on the final round when it came to the OT hacking part. Now, we tried desperately. We contacted GNU Radio officially. We tried partnering with a lot of other companies. But the problem is that in India, the majority of the students who learn engineering, they just don't have that kind of hands-on approach on OT as much as is desired. True. Now, OT, if you look at it, there is one problem with the industry. One on the academics part. Now, OT is a very large topic. It is not just concerning the industries, but also the human life on general. Now, about 8 years back, when we spoke about blue whale as a challenge which would kill people at one point of time, the principals used to laugh on us on our face, saying कि क्या बकवास कर रहे हो, ऐसा हो सकता है कि कोई गेम खेल के मर सकता है क्या? But when it happened, we were flooded with calls, right? I'm telling you this. 10 years down the line, you will need OT managers for even residential complexes. Yes. As the connected cars and the drones take up, the deliveries by the drones will pick up, the flying cars will come in. It's not science fiction anymore. You will need to redesign the buildings the way that they are positioned today. You will need OT managers even for residential complexes 10 years down the line. So what are we looking at? OT is such a major problem today for security perspective that if you don't work on the convergence of IT and OT, like IT is a very mature platform already. You have patch management, you have vulnerability management, but look at OT, 20 years they have not evolved completely at it. Now, from an education perspective, when we realize this problem, what we have started doing is we have started working with large industry partners to solve this problem at a national level. So we are building phygital labs. Phygital labs are basically a combination of IT and OT. So we have one building on the aviation sector along with the GMR group in the Hyderabad airport. It's one of the largest aviation security labs coming up. We have one in Cyberverse Foundation in Mysore. Again, it's the world's largest OT security lab where there's a complete 3D city in front of you. From a metro city to a traffic light, you will learn how to hack into it hands-on, and then there are defenders who defend it, right? So there are ways in which we are trying to solve the problem. Now, when it comes to organizations, right, as the panel has correctly said, there is a problem with awareness, and there's a reluctance also to spend money in OT security today, right? So unless and until they don't get infected by a ransomware and the operations don't get impacted, they don't want to spend money on this, right? So the convergence is happening, and it is required, but at the same time, hiring is a problem. Even if there is a procedure, like for example, CERT says, 6 घंटे में आप मेरे को notify करो, एक चीज के लिए, right? That process requires people, right? True. It's a cost. Suddenly the CISO is saying कि यार मेरे पास budget ही नहीं है, साल का budget खत्म हो गया, I need 2 more guys. I cannot. And if you want to hire also, you post one job on Naukri.com or some other place for OT, 4 months, no response, no applications, right? True. You're left to the mercy of LinkedIn. Hopefully that people will apply globally and you'll get somebody, but then that's about it, True. Nowadays.
I mean, see, having a skilled workforce which have an ability to fold their sleeves and put their hand in the grease, that's always a challenge in the industry. I can talk myself about I'm a shop floor guy typically. Once I'm in the factory, these goes my worker clothing comes up, and then I'm there on the shop floor. Technology runs through the blood, like a data, that I need to do this, I need to have that dashboard, I need to make sure GM is getting that data, I need to make sure MD is getting that data, IT should provide that tool, just assemble those tools, give me the data. Because data is there already. My question to Mandar, from the OT data perspective, what are those couple of factors that you think can be taken out as an extract and provide it like either a security point of view to the dash from the CISO to the CISO or to your to IT dashboards?
I think we can start with a good OT governance framework or a cybersecurity framework for OT. And from there, you can, I mean, there are many controls that we have already implemented on IT can be taken to OT. However, it needs to be twisted, adopted, aligned to those. And when it comes to what data points, I think what becomes more critical is from a cybersecurity perspective of OT, what are all those possible entry points and vectors through which we interface with the OT. IT, OT, be it network level, be it USB or physical, all the channels are well controlled, well regulated, well monitored, and they reflect on our KPIs and dashboard. All the standard controls, I mean foundational ones of access control, your password policy, all those other risk assessment reviews, everything can be extended to OT. And the points there again can be placed within our overall KPI or our security dashboard.
Excellent point. So I'll go to Mishra Sahab in between. So for IT, generally we have the asset refresh ratio, 3 to 5 years, etc. For OT machineries, typically there is absolutely zero refresh rate. I mean, including the industries which have machineries probably more than my age right now, and they will have only one port, that is 8-pin port, to extract the data out of it. So in those cases, typically our threat analysis framework do not apply anything. Only thing is a segmentation of that network and let it run like a independent under any control networks kind of tool or wherever you have a token ring kind of topology. So in your experience so far, have you come across these kind of challenges? And if it is, what were your learnings, and can it be shared with the audience?
So basically, when we talk about OT security, see, fundamentally there is a big difference between IT security and OT security. In IT security, we are trying to protect our bits and bytes. When you talk about OT security, we are trying to protect data and physical assets. Yeah. And those physical assets, as you said rightly, there is no refresh, fixed duration. I have seen that, in many organizations, the most critical such environment has been running since last 25 years, 30 years. Yeah. And you don't have any choice. So whatever tools and technologies, you want to deploy, you cannot, because those equipments has its own limitations.
Correct.
Yeah. So again, you should follow some best practices, and those few best practices are like, you have to regularly review the controls to see, first you should have asset visibility, that what type of asset you have, what type of features it has, how it can integrate with the new tools and technologies if you are intending to integrate. If you know that those equipments have its own limitations, you don't have any choice. Yeah. Okay. So in that case, you should have a regular review of controls. All controls which you have given to the operators or other stakeholders needs to be reviewed. One of the most important point, as Mandar said rightly, that it's more like we are heavily dependent on third-party vendors. So we should regularly review the controls what we have given to the third party. Yeah. Also, we should consider to have a regular risk assessment for third-party vendors. Yeah.
True.
Considering that those equipments has its own limitations, you don't have any choice except to optimize what you have available for integration. Yeah. And if you talk, I have seen in many cases when you go and you meet plant head or business leaders, and you try to convince them that you want to upgrade those equipments, you don't get downtime, because for business leaders the most important part is to get things produced. Yeah. So whenever you seek for any upgradation or any alteration in your existing OT ecosystem, it's very challenging. Yeah, and that's what I have seen. So the best way to review the controls, see the configuration, review all the SLAs what you have with the third-party vendors. That is the only option you can manage your OT landscape.
Correct. Thank you so much. I'll go to Siva Saab from IBM side. What was your one advice? Probably we can start with our one-liners now as we are at 12-minute mark. What is your one-line advice to the IT community, typically when it comes to establishing OT security?
Yeah, I think I would say two things. One is have a clearly defined strategy on what you want to do in OT security and how you want to do in terms of a roadmap, right? And the second aspect is, we discussed, probably you cannot go and change anything in the OT environment. It is beyond the purview of all of us. So the best thing that can be done is to have visibility, right? True. So strategy, visibility into vulnerability, visibility into activity, visibility into access, and then have a corresponding set of processes to deal with, not technically, but procedurally, if you identify something, right? So these are three simple steps that I would recommend.
So I'll take those forward to Raj Saab. So to support these strategy, visibility, vulnerability analysis, etc., from the education point of view, what are those steps that we have to take?
What I'll do is I'll just add to his point. So what the companies must do, I think the most important thing is that all the CISOs, they must, first of all, change their mindset to join bug bounty platforms. That's the first takeaway that I would like to give, because let's admit it, you don't have the right people in your company to secure your OT devices. You can do governance frameworks, you can do tools and technologies, but as a CISO, you're limited by manpower, right? So if you harness the community, which is young hackers who are outside, who are willing to support you, talk to your management and get them convince them to join a bug bounty platform, right? So in India, we have so many platforms today now coming up, right? I'm not saying you should go to hackerone.com, but in India, there are platforms, so join that. That is what I would highly recommend. It will save you time. You can sleep peacefully. At least one hacker will demand a t-shirt from you for free of cost, but at least your data is secure. So that is one I would recommend. From an education perspective, again, large companies, they must understand that by participating and joining hands with universities and helping them, create capacity in this domain is very essential. I'll give an example of a scholar program that we run. It's a course where the delegates who come in the program, for the CISOs who run this program, they are taken to the airport on restricted zones where people cannot access. They are given idea of how the OT security is managed. We take them to a power plant. We take them to a modern data center and show them how OT is managed over there, right? We want to bring this to the academics, where we want to tell the students that, look, this is how multiple critical sectors actually function, right? So the companies can be generous enough, the CISOs can be generous enough in at least opening their doors to such programs where they allow a bunch of 50 students to come to the office, have a visit on a Saturday, spend 2 hours, make them see the environment that they have. You never know how a bright guy can actually point out a flaw and help you secure something which will not have come in your view, right? So these small collaborations, very interesting ways, but can help your company sometimes mitigate very big risks.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a very, very strong and valid point because I remember one of our collaboration with Malaysia University. We got those because we had some trim applications over there, and then those were direct machinery-based applications. We wanted to have some enhancements and connect them to our data extraction points. We wanted to have people who can operate trim machine, but very versed with our IT systems, and not just press the red, green, yellow buttons. So put the feedback in text so that my AI can generate feedback mechanism. So very valid point to shake the hands with academia so that we can get the appropriate knowledge and the talent locally available to the industry.
Otherwise, what will happen? Most of the young children will end up joining call centers, and they'll not even know such a field is there where they can do a career in this.
That's true.
We don't want that to happen.
That's true. I mean, nobody want to go and learn a lathe machine and a CNC machine right now. Okay, probably, and that's true. I visited one of the university campus. I just don't want to take the name, but when I was talking about a lathe machine and a CNC machine, they were yawning. And, and it's a very sad story.
It is.
Okay. All right. So coming back to I'll go to Mishra Saab. From your experience perspective on IT OT convergence, what are those two factors which you think every industry should adapt?
So, as we talk about IT and OT convergence, we first need to, set up a integration strategy. So probably if you have some, your OT landscape which is 25, 30 years old, that may not fit to your, expectation. But if it's 5 years old or 10 years old, still you can do something. Yeah. So integration strategy is very important. And when we are trying to secure or we are trying to integrate IT and OT, one thing we have to keep in mind, there is no one-size-fits solution that works for every industry. So every industry has its own pros and cons, its own set of challenges. Yeah. So first we need to understand that how it's fitting to our business requirement, and then you make your strategy accordingly. That's the only way you can, reach up to that level.
Thank you so much. Mandar, last question, last two lines from your side. So from your experience perspective, from IT OT convergence side of it, at the shop floor, what are those two most critical things IT person should do?
So I think as an IT person at shop floor, I think all our foundational do's and don'ts that we have, right, towards IT in terms of, let's say, whatever we call it, cyber appropriate behavior. The behavior in terms of, because today what happens, a lot of awareness is there. We have been, conducting targeted awareness sessions and all. However, there is still situations where the actual behavior of the user or the person has not changed. So therefore, we have to bring the right level of sensitization in terms of consequences of if you go wrong in this behavior, these are the impacts and this is how it is. I think if we partner with our IT team, instrumentation team and all the people sitting behind those engineering station, monitoring stations, once they appreciate the importance of why we are telling what we are telling, I think a lot of things fall in line.
So last 5 minutes, I'll just try to do a wrap up here. So I'll start with Mandar. He spoke about a little bit on have a business partnership with your business. That is one. From our academia perspective, it has been highly recommended that we should go and shake the hands with academia, with the people over there, train them in what you want them to do. Maybe 5 years from now and 10 years from now, so that their interest keeps on over there where we want them to be, and not just going taking out somewhere. And then from strategy and build structure perspective, from taking that knowledge, have the frameworks, have the compliance mechanisms, have the audit mechanisms, have the SOD kind of relation established not only on the application side but also on your OT environment. And the last one, which I picked up from Siva Sahab, is to do all this, you need to make sure that you sit down along with the business, make sure your ideas, goals, and your strategic thought processes match with each other. With that, I try to conclude it with a 3-minute spare, and will open up for any questions from the audience. Yes.
I would agree to what Yogesh has said, but if you look at the typical industry, if you have to do this entire framework, is it possible to do it in 6 months, 8 months, 1 year? So what are those 3 things what you need to do to have a quick fix
so that you are in line with the security framework?
I'll take that. There is no quick fix. That's one. Okay. Second, think to segregate first. Keep the operations separate from the network perspective. Okay. That is either you process a token ring on your OT and keep a SOD on your IT. And SOD not just on the application side, whichever ERP you are running, it will have its own, but keeping it separate from each other. And then your data which is getting generated, what are your input channels and what are your extraction points, keeping that interaction completely under visibility is the first strategy. And this can be established within 3 months. Then you can go towards refresh cycles, you can go towards upgradation cycles or whatever, your choice. Am I right, gentlemen?
If you permit, it also depends on your lunch policy. So the thing is that if you want to fix it, you should have a policy that the IT guys must not sit together in the lunch within their own friends, right? They must move and sit with the OT guys and have lunch together. That will make a big difference in your processes and will fasten your ways to achieve your goals that you want.
Yeah.
And also one more point I would like to add. You also think about your risk appetite. So you know that you want to follow this upgradation path, but what risk you have and how much risk your business can tolerate. So accordingly you can strategize your policy.
Sure.
That is very important.
So last 30 seconds, I think somebody have a question there.
So actually in OT security, we have heard about that data diodes. How practical they are in implementation, and what are your thoughts?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. Can you repeat that?
Data diodes. So today we
IBM.
talk about data diodes.
Yeah, so see, they are essentially used as a bridge to bring data from the OT environment to the IT environment. Simplistically, that is what it is being used. It's a one-way communication. So data only flows from your OT environment to IT, and nothing goes back from the IT to the OT, right?
Perfect.
So that's what.
So with that, gentlemen, I think we will be concluding our session for today. Thank you so much. You have been a great audience. If there are any questions, we can take those offline. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My God, thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause because this is our last segment for the session. Of course, last segment before the awards.